Emily Thornberry.
It's an honour and a privilege, not only for me, but for my constituents of Islington South and Finsbury, to be asked to second the loyal address. And I was also delighted to hear that I was going to be doing a double act with my good friend and Western neighbour, the Right Honourable Member for Holborn and St Pancras. It is very strange to be a backbencher and to speak in this chamber when it is so packed. and you're all so well behaved. I'm used to being in this chamber when there's only about half a dozen of us, and even then things can get pretty heated. I was fully expecting a parliamentary punch-up when I advocated the rights of lesbian mothers, but I was amazed at the passion I aroused during the fisheries debate. All I said was that the sea belonged to the children of the inner cities too. I'd been visiting Islington schools to talk about the Marine Bill, and some of the children had written to me about it, so I took some of their work into the chamber. I took, for example, a new version of the Pink Floyd hit, Another Brick in the Wall, and it went like this. Don't worry, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to sing. Even under the new modernising regime, I know that I'm not allowed. We don't need no grilled fish fingers. We don't need no cod and chips. No pointless murder of the dolphins. Dredgers, leave them fish alone. Hey, dredgers, leave them fish alone. All in all, there's not just another fish in the sea. All in all, there's not just another fish in the sea. And for some reason, this wasn't a universal hit with the salty old sea dogs in the fisheries debate. But I don't believe that we can complain about kids not engaging in politics if we don't make the effort to listen to them. I recently asked a group of 10-year-olds how they thought I got my job. Did you apply for it in writing? No. Did you go on a course? No. I know, miss, I know. Did you marry Tony Blair? No, that arrangement really wouldn't have suited either of us. But it was for a school visit. I went to Parliament. I cycled in early into Parliament on the morning of 7/7. And unknowingly at the time, I cycled through Russell Square just after the first bomb and just before the second. I'd only been elected for a few weeks, and I will never forget that day. And in the next few weeks, I worked closely with the Right Honourable Member for Holborn and St Pancras, and I lent on him very heavily. I also lent on my good friend, the Honourable Member for Islington North, and I will always be grateful to them for their help. We visited the sites of the bombings, and we did our best to hold our communities together. And they did hold together. And because in Islington and in Camden, our diverse peoples not only get on with living together, they like it that way. Islington is the home to people from all over the world and from all backgrounds. We're not just cappuccino bars and Georgian squares. We're not just awash with the chattering classes and the birthplace of New Labour. We are more than that. At my recent surgery, I had people from 17 countries coming along. We have a large gay population. We have gay weddings at the town hall every Saturday. And we are a tolerant community. We tolerate the bankers living amongst us. We tolerate the journalists living amongst us. And my constituents even put up with the large number of the biggest social pariah of all, members of Parliament. Believe it or not, there was a time when there were 4 Labour women MPs living in my ward, and famously, for a few hours in 1997, the new Prime Minister lived there too. But of course, it's not just MPs on my side. And I see a number of gentlemen opposite, looking slightly uncomfortable at the turn this speech may have taken. But you can be assured I am discreet. I will not out you as a member of my constituency. However, the next time you're invited to a coffee morning, please come. You're very welcome. And you can be assured that the coffee will be fair trade. Alongside those from a range of backgrounds, we have extremes of rich and poor. My constituency is the poorer half of the 8th most deprived borough in Britain. That's why areas like mine need a Labour government on their side. All the social housing has been done up under the Decent Homes programme. All my secondary schools are new or have been rebuilt. We have new buildings for the best sixth form centre in London, and we have world-class hospitals, several of them looking after my constituents. But the assumptions that are made about Islington South are only part of its story. Sometimes the assumptions made about its MP are also only part of her story too. They say that I'm posh. And to a certain extent, I am. I worked for 20 years as a barrister. I'm married to another barrister, and of course, I'm an MP. Quintin Letts says that I'm magnificently county. He's even called me scrumptious. But you know, I was pleased to be Lettsed, because you haven't really made it as a Labour woman MP if you haven't had Quintin Letts be really rude about you in the Daily Mail. And it could be said that I am county, and it is true, but only insofar as the large council estate I was brought up on was 4 miles outside Guildford. Having been thrown out of our house by the bailiffs in their bowler hats, we were homeless, and we were destitute, and we were saved by social housing. My mum was a single parent, and she was caught in a poverty trap, and she struggled on benefits, bringing up me and my brothers when we were little. It still would have been hard, but without doubt, the minimum wage, tax credits, nursery provision and flexible hours would have really helped my mum get out of the trap that she was in. And of all the things that Labour have done, that is what I am most proud of. Later in life, my mum became a Labour councillor, one of Guildford's few, and the Tory council kindly named one of the roads in her ward after her, Thornberry Way. It runs from the sewage works to the dump. But we were chuffed. Thank you. The 2 secondary schools I went to have both had fresh starts as academies, and the first, a secondary modern, never really expected a lot of us 11-plus failures. I remember asking my careers teacher what he thought I would do with my life, and he said he wasn't really sure, but maybe I would spend some time visiting people in prison. Well, whatever he meant, I'm sure he didn't expect that I would become a criminal barrister and do an awful lot of prison visiting that way. I qualified as a barrister during the miners' strike, and I found myself going up and down on the train to the coalfields. I represented good men and women who were criminalised by the strike. I read a lot about solidarity as an earnest young radical, but it was my experience of the miners' strike that taught me what solidarity really means. My early life informed my politics. I have always been driven by a desire to make life fairer, and the only party I could ever have joined was Labour. And so here I am, posh or not, proud to serve my community as a backbench MP of a Labour government. Mr. Speaker, the MPs who represented Islington South and Finsbury before me have been as remarkable and varied as the constituency itself. Finsbury elected the first Asian MP 117 years ago, Dadabhai Naoroji. He was elected with a majority of just 5. In Parliament, MPs found Naoroji too difficult a word to pronounce, so they called him Mr. Narrow Majority. I think I have a bit of an affinity with him. And although he was a Liberal, I forgive him, because the Labour Party hadn't been invented then. And more recently, Chris Smith was the first openly gay MP, and he was our MP, and he later became a cabinet minister, the first out cabinet minister in the world. And although I am the constituency's first woman MP, there is an eastern corner of my patch where this is nothing new. In the 20s and 30s, Islington East elected 3 women in a row. They liked their women representatives so much that the third one, Thelma Cazalet, was even a Tory. But I don't think she was a real Tory, because she was a member of the Fabians, and during the war, she successfully amended a clause of Butler's education bill so that women teachers could be given equal pay. Now, Churchill was so furious that he got rid of the whole clause, so you see what I mean? Not really a Tory. And in fact, these days, she'd probably be on our side, being attacked by Quintin Letts as one of Harriet's harpies. I like to think that Thelma Cazalet and Dadabhai Naoroji would have voted with us to tackle bankers' bonuses, to look after our elderly with social care for the most vulnerable, and to right international wrongs, compensating British citizens injured in terror attacks overseas and banning cluster munitions. These are bold and optimistic plans in the Queen's speech, and I welcome them. But above all, we must safeguard our world from climate change. Yes, with support for new ways of tackling the problem, like carbon capture and storage. But the most serious work in the next 6 months that the government can do will not be in this place, but will be in Copenhagen. It will be a challenge to broker a deal, but we may not get what we hope for immediately. But our children will never forgive us if we do not fight for it.
Absolutely.
I am sure that the whole House will wish the Prime Minister a successful outcome to the summit this December. We must face these challenges with courage and optimism, and we will. Mr. Speaker, I commend the gracious speech to the House.